In their liquid form, pastels look just like paint. But Margaret's goal is to drain the moisture, turning this bright blue blob into some of the most renowned pastel sticks on the market. La Maison du Pastel, founded by Henri Roché, has been making them the same way for 300 years. These drawers store hundreds upon hundreds of colors, with only slight variations between shades, some only a trained eye can see. But a premium pastel business is hard to sustain. Pastels aren't as popular as other fine art mediums like oil paint. So for years, the business struggled to find and keep its customer base. Today, its two co-owners work tirelessly to keep this centuries-old tradition alive without sacrificing the quality the Maison is known for. So how is this niche art business still standing? Isabelle Roché, a relative of Henri Roché, and Margaret Zayer are the company's only two employees. They make new pastel sticks a lot like the old ones, starting with pigment and a binder, based on a secret formula that took Roché and his son decades to develop.
People like Whistler, Redon, Degas, Sisley, who all had issues with the medium. They were having problems with the powder sticking to the paper. They were having mold on their works. So Henri Roché brought all of his scientific skills to try and remedy and bring them the product that they were looking for.
So the base of this new color is cerulean blue, which is a very classic pigment.
This new color, Caribbean blue, will join more than 1,900 others the Maison offers. It's the biggest selection in the company's history, maybe even the biggest selection of pastels ever. So adding new colors to the mix takes a discerning eye and skilled hands. That's where Margaret comes in. She's the creative force behind the business.
If the sun's out and we don't feel like working, we don't work. Or if the sun's out and it inspires us to make a beautiful color, we do that.
After the initial color is set, Isabelle and Margaret divide it into 9 gradations, from dark to light, so artists can find the exact shade they need.
So I'm essentially aiming to go between those two. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. This will be number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Margaret, I started with 1.5 spoons of the dark. I think I'm going to be making masses already.
Throughout its centuries-long history, the Maison was renowned for its unmatched range of colors. This is especially important for pastel artists, who can't just mix 2 pastels together to make a new color before putting it to paper.
You can't blend pastel on a palette like a painter might, but if you really want to make a line of a color, you need to have a stick of that color.
That blending needs to happen at the very beginning of a pastel's life instead.
I'm actually not far from where I want to be, which is really magical. I'm going to mix it, I really mix it in before I compare. So I'm actually right now a bit darker than I want to be, so I'm going to add a bit of white.
If the paste is too stiff, you can't integrate the white and the color very easily, but by bringing it to a sort of cake batter consistency, they merge quite well.
When they're satisfied with the color, Isabelle scoops the mixture onto a terracotta roof tile to dry.
We use the tiles because that's how it was done in the past, but the advantage of the tiles is they're porous.
The tiles absorb a bunch of the moisture, creating less work for Margaret when she will put the mixture through their antique press. After the paste has adequately dried, Margaret wraps it in a cloth and uses an antique press to gradually squeeze the moisture from the paste.
This is a tool that was there when Isabelle took over the Maison. I would imagine it's been used for quite a long time.
Yeah, essentially a lot of what we're surrounded with are tools and drawers that date back 150 years. And it's as well, it gives us this sense of âme in French, I'm not sure how you say that in English, of spirit, a soul.
Margaret joined Isabelle at the Maison in 2010 after a visit to the shop. She sent a cold email inquiring about a summer job and ended up finding her calling.
I would have been happy just cleaning the shop, so I didn't expect an invitation to come to the house and make the pastels with her.
The way I see it is I allowed the business to survive, and today I'm giving Margaret a sort of structure within which she can really make the craft live.
And by the end of this, we'll probably end up with something more consistent with modeling clay cookie dough.
This is one of those points in the process, though, where you might want to just sort of muscle it, but you actually have to be quite attentive. There's certain colors that lose water quite quickly that you can easily overpress. And it's always more complicated adding water back. Oh, that's better.
Isa? Okay, I'm coming over with the paste.
Hand rolling each pastel allows them to add more pigment to the mix than if they used a machine.
We tolerate certain consistencies that machines can't tolerate. We end up with colors that are either more vibrant or deeper or more concentrated. To me, it's always been the phase of the making that I prefer. It's sort of the moment when you're actually forming them, so you're starting to see it happening and becoming a pastel. When you don't know how to roll them, you can end up with pancakes. The first pastels I made just didn't look like anything. They were all weird shapes and they were flat, they had holes in them.
The cutting with the large braid, I believe that was also and the invention of Henri Roché to the traditional process, because I think in the past they used to cut the sticks once they were dry, which took forever. So it's cutting the ends in one fell swoop.
When Isabelle took over the company for her aging aunts in 2000, she held on to many of the tools and techniques that Roché developed in his day.
5,86.
And then we let them air dry, usually for about 3 weeks. Depends on the season, depends on the colors.
But there was also plenty about the languishing business that needed to change. When she took over, the Maison had next to no inventory and hardly any customers to sell it to.
My great aunts were in their 80s when I took over, which means that for the last 20 years they hadn't made much. They were very secretive, so they hadn't tried to generate new customers. So essentially their customer base, as the artists had grown older and died, they hadn't been replaced.
So she spent her first 2 years regenerating supply.
I'd managed to reconstitute about 250 or 300 colors
Before focusing on demand. The Maison serves what's known as a niche market. Imagine the market as a pie. While a mass market company like Crayola tries to carve the biggest slice by appealing to as many people as possible, businesses serving niche markets cut smaller, specialty slices. that appeal to a specific type of customer. A huge reason for Roché's success was how he collaborated with artists to create the colors they needed. And Isabelle was determined to do the same.
The most difficult thing for me was that I had no art background at all. I had no artistic background either. I didn't draw, I didn't paint. So when I was talking to the artists, I felt I was talking a different language.
One of these artists is Claude Barré-Allard.
I've known her since the day I took over. I think that the first color I made was a bleu indigo, an indigo blue, that she'd been waiting for 2 years.
Did she tell you that she was creating colors for me?
Yeah.
Yes, I did. That makes me very proud, for sure. That means that they like what I can do with their colors, for sure. They serve me, I serve them. It's an exchange, as in life.
Claude picked up pastels later in her career, after spending most of it working with oil paints.
I bought the Pastel Roché very slowly in the beginning, and I discovered that I sold much more with the Pastel Roché because the work became much better, because the quality of pigments was wonderful.
Historically, pastels have taken a back seat to more popular mediums like oil paints.
You have waves of it being used extensively, and then it goes back into being a secondary medium that people only use, to do basic drawings and etc. We are aware that, it comes and goes, and at the moment we feel that a few artists are really picking up the technique and doing really serious things with it, not just preparatory drawings. I walked into this thinking there are just maybe a handful or maybe 10 artists in France that really need the pastels. If I can multiply that by the number of countries around the world, I should be able to make a living out of it.
Isabelle inherited an archive of century-old pigment, some of which is still usable. Sometimes, Margaret can even reach into the company's past to make new pastel colors.
Oh, that's beauty. It's a really beautiful ochre, actually. Actually, I'm processing this in real time. That I really like this pigment. This is a genuine discovery. Well, I kind of want to see what kind of a pastel this makes. I imagine because it's an ochre, it will make an agreeable texture. I want to compare this to ochres that we already have in the range to see if I'd actually kind of... Do you mind if I go get a piece of paper and a bit of white?
Sure.
While much of the process remains the same as when Roché ran things, what Isabelle and Margaret really hold on to is how he thought about the business.
What really makes, our pastels what they are is his formulas and how they marry to the craftsmanship of the artisan that he met.
Avec les pastels Roché, c'est une ascension, quoi. On progresse dans la pose de la couleur, et ça c'est essentiel parce que, dans mon travail, c'est essentiel.
I know that Margaret has in her head several other ranges that she wants to bring in, and on paper she already knows that one day we will go above 2,000. But essentially, as long as we keep having people coming to the shop asking for colors they don't have, we're going to be bringing in new things.